I never thought I'd be that guy. The one who gets blindsided by something so fucking obvious in retrospect. It's like a scene from a bad movie, but it's my real life. I met Lisa when I was 28. She was vibrant, funny, kind of reckless in that charming way, everything I thought I wanted in a partner. We got engaged after about a year and a half, and honestly, I was happy, or so I told myself. The first red flags weren't obvious at first. Little things. She'd forget her phone in the bathroom when she was getting ready, stuff like that. I'd find her phone on the nightstand sometimes, and I'd catch her texting late at night, quick messages, quick laughs, nothing too suspicious. I brushed it off, thinking everyone was a little guarded about their privacy. But a gut feeling was forming. Something felt off, like a faint jitter in my stomach I couldn't shake. Still, I ignored it. I was too busy planning our wedding, too in love to see the warning signs. Then came the weekend she was supposed to visit her sister. I stayed home, working late, feeling that familiar knot tighten in my stomach. It was just a regular Friday night, or so I thought. I had been busy on my laptop when I noticed a notification pop up on her phone, a message from Jake. I froze, my heart pounded. Jake was her best friend. They'd known each other since college. Nothing unusual about that except for the fact that I'd never seen her so secretive about her phone before. I didn't mean to snoop, but curiosity took over. I glanced at the message. It read, "Can't wait for us this weekend. It's been too long." My stomach clenched. I looked closer and I saw a string of texts about a getaway, details about their hotel, plans to sneak away for a private weekend. My hands went cold. I could feel the blood draining from my face. I stared at the phone for what felt like forever, a cold sweat breaking out as I processed what I was reading. What hurt the most was the way she'd hidden this from me. I mean, I had no idea they even had plans like that. I'd always trusted her, and now I was left questioning everything. Her words, her promises, our entire future. My mind spun with questions. How long had this been going on? Were there more secrets? Did she ever love me, or was I just some stopgap while she was planning her escape? I wanted to confront her then and there, but I also knew I needed to be smart. I needed a plan. I couldn't just blow up and accuse her without proof. That wouldn't serve me. Not yet. But I knew one thing: this wasn't some innocent mistake. It was deliberate, calculated betrayal, and I was done being the fool. I closed her phone slowly, my fingers trembling. My head was pounding, my palms slick with sweat. I looked out the window at the night sky, trying to make sense of what to do next. Part of me wanted to yell, to scream at her when she got home, but I knew that wouldn't be enough. I needed a plan. A way to make her see I wasn't going to be the guy she used and tossed aside. That's when I started mapping it out, how I was going to handle this. It wasn't just about catching her cheating. It was about revenge, about showing her she couldn't betray me without consequences. The plan was simple, cruel in its own way, but effective. I would make her regret ever crossing that line. The next morning, I woke up with a feeling I couldn't quite shake. My stomach still twisted, my mind racing. I knew I couldn't just let this slide. No, I had to act. I had to turn the tables, make her pay for what she did. I didn't want to just walk away. I wanted her to understand exactly what her betrayal cost me. And I was ready to do whatever it took to make her see she'd lost something irreplaceable. But I kept those thoughts locked inside, for now. I had a plan, and I was going to execute it step by step, without hesitation. I had to, because if I didn't, I'd be the fool forever. I spent the next few days in a fog, trying to figure out how exactly I was going to pull this off. I knew I couldn't confront her without proof. No way I was going to look like some jealous idiot. I needed something concrete, something that would leave her no room to deny. So I started digging, not just on her phone, but through her social media, her emails, anything that could give me a clearer picture of what she'd been hiding. I remember the moment I found the second piece of the puzzle vividly. It was late at night, and I was sitting at the kitchen table, a cup of cold coffee cooling in front of me. My hands were trembling, but I forced myself to stay calm. I pulled out her laptop, knowing that if I was going to do this, I needed to be thorough. I logged into her email, nothing illegal, just enough to see what she'd been hiding behind the scenes. That's when I saw the email chain from a week ago. It was from Jake, of course. They'd been exchanging messages about their secret getaway, plans, jokes, little flirtatious comments that made my stomach churn. But I also saw something even worse. A string of texts she hadn't deleted where she'd told him she couldn't wait for the weekend, that she was ready to leave her old life behind just for him. I read it all in silence, feeling a mixture of rage and disbelief. How could she do this? How could she lie so blatantly? I closed the laptop slowly, feeling the weight of it on my lap. My vision blurred slightly, my pulse pounding in my ears. I knew I had to act, but I also had to be smart about it. I couldn't just storm into her office or her apartment and accuse her. She'd deny everything, spin some bullshit, and I'd be back to square one. Instead, I started planning my revenge. Not just a reactive one, but something calculated, something she'd feel deep down. I wanted her to see that I wasn't just some guy to discard. I wanted her to realize the gravity of what she'd done, how she'd shattered the trust we built. The plan was simple in theory but ruthless in execution. I'd make her regret her choices without tossing her aside immediately. First step, I'd gather more evidence. I knew she'd be cautious now, so I needed to act quickly. I set up a few discreet cameras around the house. Nothing obvious, just enough to catch her when she thought no one was watching. I didn't want to stalk her or invade her privacy, but I needed visual proof. If she was planning to leave me, I wanted her caught in the act, caught in her own lies. Second step, I'd reach out to Jake, see how far their plans went, and figure out what kind of damage control might be needed. Part of me wanted to confront him directly, but I figured I'd start with subtlety. Maybe even use him as part of my plan later. I knew I'd need leverage. While I was doing all this, I couldn't help feeling the knot in my stomach tighten. The betrayal cut deep. It wasn't just that she cheated. It was how she did it, how she kept me in the dark for so long. The thought of her lying next to me, pretending everything was fine, made my skin crawl. I felt the hostility boiling inside me, seeping into every corner of my body. I clenched my fists, trying to keep my rage in check, but I knew I was on the edge of making some kind of move. That night I sat on the couch, staring at my phone, contemplating what to do next. I knew I was close to crossing a line, but I also knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. I looked at her photos. On the wall, memories of us happy and in love. Now all I could think about was how she'd betrayed that trust, how I had been so blind. I finally decided that enough was enough. I was going to make her see what she lost, and I was going to do it in a way she wouldn't forget. I started drafting a message, something cold, calculated, and precise. I wasn't going to call her out yet, not outright. Instead, I'd let her find out I knew everything, then let her sweat. I wanted her to realize I wasn't the naive guy she thought I was. And so I hit send. A simple message saying I needed to talk, that I'd found some things that couldn't wait. No accusations, just enough to get her nervous. That's when I felt that familiar rush, the thrill of the game I was about to play. I knew I had her on the ropes now, and I was just getting started. The next day I watched her come home from work, her face tense, like she'd been holding her breath all day. She kept glancing at her phone, nervously typing and deleting messages. That little nervous ritual told me everything I needed to know, that she was on edge, worried about what I might have discovered. I stayed quiet, forcing myself to breathe evenly, but inside my mind was racing. I wanted her to feel the pressure, to realize that the jig was up. When she finally sat down across from me at the dinner table, her hands trembled as she reached for her glass. I let the silence settle for a moment before I spoke. "We need to talk," I said calmly, though my voice felt rough from the tension. "I found some things, Lisa. Things I wish I hadn't, but now I know everything. And honestly, I'm not sure I even want to hear your explanation." Her eyes widened. "What are you talking about? Did you see my phone?" "No," I interrupted, leaning forward. "I saw your email, your messages with Jake, the plans for the getaway. The lies you told me about your weekend with your sister, all of it. You lied to my face, Lisa. While I was planning to marry you, you were already planning to run away with him." Her face paled, and she looked like a deer caught in headlights. "It's not what it looks like," she whispered, avoiding my gaze. "We didn't mean for it to get so out of control. It was just a mistake, a stupid mistake I regret. I swear I didn't want to hurt you." I clenched my fists under the table, feeling a surge of hostility. "A mistake? You think I'm stupid? You planned this for weeks, didn't you? The secret getaway, the lies, the cover-ups. Do you even realize what you've done? You betrayed everything we were building. You, my best friend, Jake, your own best friend, played me for a fool." She looked down, tears welling but not falling. "I didn't want it to happen, it just did. I was scared to tell you, I didn't want to lose everything." I shook my head slowly, trying to keep my voice steady. "You didn't want to lose everything, that's bullshit. You wanted to have your cake and eat it too. Well, I've got news for you. I'm not some fool who's going to forgive and forget just because you're crying now." Her shoulders slumped, and she looked genuinely broken. That only made my stomach churn more. Because part of me wanted to believe she was sorry, but another part, the part I hated, wanted her to feel the full weight of her lies. I wanted her to understand she'd crossed a line that could never be erased. "I need some space," I said coldly, rising from the table. "Give me a few days to think about everything, and don't bother trying to contact me. I'll talk to you when I'm ready." That night I stayed up late, pacing my apartment, my mind spinning with how to execute my revenge. I knew I had to strike hard, but I wanted to do it smart. I had already started setting the stage. The hidden cameras. They'd record every move she made. The evidence I'd collected was enough to make her realize I wasn't the fool she thought I was. But I also knew I needed to push her further, make her feel the guilt and regret I was feeling. The way she'd betrayed me so casually, like I was nothing. That's when I remembered her phone charger, something I could use to plan a little something extra. It was simple but effective. I'd leave it in her purse with a small, hidden device connected to the camera system. When she used her phone, I'd see her in action. By dawn, I made my decision. I was going to confront her with everything, but I was also going to let her know that I had plans of my own, not just for revenge, but for her to see she'd lost someone who truly loved her, and that the fallout wouldn't be pretty. I could feel the anticipation building in my chest. It's funny how betrayal fuels the worst side of a person. I wasn't just planning to walk away. I was planning to make sure she knew exactly what she'd lost, and I was ready to act when the moment was right. That evening, I took my time. I wanted her to think she still had some control, that she could keep her secret a little longer. I set up the last pieces of the puzzle, hidden cameras, the device in her purse. All of it was discreet, enough to get her in the act, but hidden enough that she wouldn't suspect a thing. I wanted her to believe she was still in the driver's seat, when in reality, I was just waiting for the perfect moment to make my move. While I was busy preparing everything, I kept replaying her words from earlier in the day. "It's just a mistake," she'd said. "Yeah," I thought bitterly. A mistake that cost me my trust, my future, and probably more than I realized at the time. But I didn't want her to think she'd gotten away with it. Not yet. I remember feeling the adrenaline more than anything else, my heart pounding so loudly I thought the walls might hear it. My palms sweat, and I kept telling myself to stay calm. I'd learned a lot about myself these past few days, how much I hated being betrayed, how much I hated feeling powerless. Well, no more. At around midnight, I finally got the message I'd been waiting for. Her phone lit up with a new message from Jake. I watched her pick it up, her face illuminated by the screen, a nervous flicker in her eyes. She hesitated, then unlocked it and read. That's when she looked around, her breathing quickening. She was caught completely. I knew then that the game was on. I had her now, and I wasn't planning to hold back. I slipped into the other room to give her a moment, but I kept my eye on the tiny camera feed I'd set up. Her movements were stiff, guilty. She kept glancing at her purse, probably realizing I was watching her. I stepped into the room, making sure she saw me. Her eyes widened, and she looked like she'd been caught in a trap. I decided to go for the confrontation, but with a calculated coolness. I didn't need to yell. I just needed her to understand that everything was over. "Nice of you to finally check your messages," I said softly, voice laced with steel. "Did you think you could keep this hidden forever?" She swallowed hard, trying to find words but failing. I didn't mean for it to get so out of hand," she whispered. "I was just scared." "Scared?" I repeated, voice rising just a bit. "You were scared of what? Losing your perfect life with me? Or was this just some getaway you planned behind my back? Tell me, Lisa, how long has this been going on?" She looked down, tears threatening to fall. "It's just a stupid mistake," she said again, almost pleading now. "Please don't make this worse." I took a deep breath, feeling the cold fury inside me. "It's too late for that. You lied, you cheated, and you betrayed everything I thought we had. I gave you my trust, Lisa, and you threw it away for a weekend with Jake. You don't get to come back from that." Her eyes flickered with regret, but I knew better than to believe it. She'd chosen him, and she'd chosen to hide it. I needed her to realize the full impact of her betrayal. "Here's what's going to happen," I said firmly, pulling out the camera footage on my phone. "You're going to pack your bags and leave tonight. You're not going to stay here and pretend everything's okay. And after that, I'm going to get my things too, because I refuse to be with someone who does this to me." Her voice broke as she tried to protest. "Please don't do this. We can fix it." "No," I cut her off sharply. "You've broken something I don't think I can ever fix, and I don't want an apology. I want you out of my life today." I handed her a small bag with some essentials I knew she'd want. She stared at it, tears streaming now, trembling hands reaching for her purse. I saw the moment she realized everything was done, her secret, her lies, her future with Jake gone. I took a step back, feeling an odd mixture of relief and emptiness. It was over. I finally did it. As she moved to leave, she looked at me once more, eyes filled with sorrow and regret. "I'm sorry, I really am." I didn't say anything, just watched her walk out the door, clutching her purse in her shame. I closed the door behind her, then sat down on the couch, feeling the weight lift slightly but leaving an ache deep in my chest. That night I finally understood what I needed to do. I'd been loyal, trusting, hopeful until she shattered it all. Now I was free, and she was the one who lost everything. This was the end of her chapter in my life, and honestly, it felt like the only way forward. I guess some betrayals really do change everything. The days that followed felt like walking through a fog. I wasn't sure if I was relieved or hollow. After she left, I stayed in my apartment trying to piece myself back together, but everything seemed dull. The house was too quiet, the silence louder than any fight or argument. I kept replaying that night, each moment burned into my memory. The way she looked at me with those tear-filled eyes, the sound of her footsteps fading away. I knew I had to move on, but part of me refused to let go so easily. I started packing my things, not out of anger, but more like an instinctual need to reclaim what was mine. I threw her belongings in a box, each item sparking a fresh wave of bitterness. Her favorite sweater, the necklace I bought her, the little notes we'd written for each other. All of it now just trash, memories I wanted to erase. While I was packing, I kept thinking about Jake. His face flickered in my mind. I'd reached out to him, texted, actually. Simple, straightforward. Told him I knew everything and that I'd be watching him. I wanted him to know I wasn't going to forget. He'd played his part, but I was. Finished with him, not yet. The worst part was the gut-wrenching feeling that I'd trusted her completely. We'd been planning a life together, and she'd only been planning her escape for weeks. It made my stomach twist. The betrayal felt like a punch in the gut, a deep, gnawing ache that I couldn't shake. I'd been so blind to the signs, so eager to believe she was perfect. Foolish, stupid, even. But I wasn't going to stay a fool forever. I started working on my revenge plan more deliberately. I knew I had to send a message, not just to her but to Jake as well. I wanted them both to understand the consequences of their actions. I wanted to make sure they knew I wasn't just some pushover. This was about respect, about boundaries, and about making them regret their choices. So I devised a simple scheme. I used the cameras I installed earlier to record every move she made after she left. I knew her habits, her routines. She'd probably try to contact me, maybe even come back to try to manipulate the situation. But I was ready for that. I watched her from afar, waiting for her to slip up. I also set up a fake email account, one that I used purely for intimidation. I sent her a message that night, calm, cold, and precise. I told her I knew what she'd done, that I was watching, and that she'd better stay away. No threats, just facts. I wanted her to feel the weight of her actions without ever directly confronting her again until I was ready. Meanwhile, I kept my distance from Jake, but I made sure he knew I was serious. I tracked his social media, looked for any signs of him trying to contact her or plan something behind my back. I wanted him to understand that I was aware of his role and that I wasn't going to let him off the hook either. Most importantly, I started building my own life again. I went back to work, made new routines, and tried to fill the void she left. It wasn't easy. My skin still prickled with hostility whenever I saw her face in my mind, but I refused to let her win by breaking me. I wanted her to see that I was stronger than her lies, smarter than her games. I also took a moment to reflect about trust, about love, about how people can reveal their true colors so quickly. I realized I'd been naive, but I also understood my own strength. I wasn't going to be a victim. I was going to come out of this in control, no matter how much it hurt. One night I sat in my apartment, staring at the city lights beyond my window, feeling that strange mix of resolve and emptiness. I clenched my fists, feeling the tension in my arms. I was close to executing the final part of my plan, the one that would make her regret ever crossing me. I knew it would hurt, but it was necessary. I finally made the call to my lawyer, started the paperwork for a clean break, and prepared myself to say goodbye to everything I'd built with her. I was ready to move on, stronger, wiser, and with a clearer sense of what I deserved. Because at the end of the day, the best revenge isn't just making her feel guilty, it's living better without her. And that's exactly what I planned to do. The day I finally moved out, I felt a strange mix of relief and finality. I packed the last of her things into a box, everything smelling vaguely of her perfume and memories I'd tried to forget. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of all those betrayed promises lift just a little. I tossed the box into my trunk, locked the door behind me, and didn't look back. As I drove away, I couldn't help but feel a strange sense of victory, small but real. I'd planned everything meticulously, and now it was over. The cameras had done their job. I had enough evidence to make sure she knew I wasn't bluffing. She'd see that I'd been watching her every move, waiting for her to slip. And slip she did. I had left her keys on the kitchen counter, the same way I'd left the house keys in her purse earlier that week. As I shut the door for the last time, I felt the finality settle in my chest. I'd handed her the keys to my heart, and she'd stomped all over them. Now I was taking back what was mine. Sitting in my car, I took a long, steady breath. The adrenaline had ebbed, replaced by a calm I hadn't felt in a long time. I knew this was the beginning of something new, something better. I was finally free from the lies, the betrayal, the false promises. I didn't need her to define me anymore. I sent the last email, simple, direct. Just a note saying I'd moved on, that I was done waiting, done hoping, that I was done with her. I attached the footage from the cameras, her sneaking around, touching her phone, looking guilty as hell, and hit send. No more hiding, no more games. She'd see everything now. Driving away from the city, I felt a strange sense of clarity. My stomach no longer twisted, my mind was clear. I'd been betrayed in the worst way, but I'd also learned something vital, my own resilience. I could survive this. I could move forward without her, and I would. In the silence of the road, I realized something else. Trust is fragile, and people can surprise you, sometimes in the worst ways. But that's also why I'd taken control of the situation. I'd turned the tables, not just to punish her, but to prove to myself that I wouldn't be broken by betrayal. I finally understood that revenge isn't about hurting someone else. It's about reclaiming your strength, your dignity. And I'd done that piece by piece, step by step. As the miles stretched ahead, I looked at the horizon and felt a quiet, powerful resolve settle over me. Whatever the future held, I knew I'd be okay. I'd learned to trust again, this time wisely, because I was done with being blindsided, done with being the fool, and most importantly, done with her. The past was behind me now. I was moving forward, stronger than ever, ready to rebuild from the ashes of betrayal. And that was the best kind of revenge there was.